What was your worst sleepover experience during your childhood? This happened to me once. I was hiding between two parts of a sort of modular couch that they had in their basement. I had put a blanket and some pillows over the top of the crack between them so it looked flush with the rest of the couch. I had a single crack of light which I used to look at my watch. Something like an hour passed with me crumpled up between the couch. Eventually, they forgot about me, started playing Wii, funnily enough, while sitting on the exact couch I was at. Maybe an hour had gone by at this point since I hid myself. A little while longer and then someone mentions, "Hey, did Johnny_Swanee go home?" They agreed that no, I hadn't gone home and that I had been gone since they started hide and seek. They started looking for me. They looked everywhere, except, of course, the couch they were sitting at the whole time beforehand. Another half hour might have passed. No sign of me. Keep in mind, I am writhing in pain from the uncomfortable position I am in. Quite literally crumpled between two pieces of furniture on a cold, concrete floor, for well over an hour. Everything is hurting at this point. Once people start talking about leaving, I carefully emerge from my hiding spot without being seen and just sort of reintegrate myself with the group. They notice me and are pretty surprised. They commended my determination and we played more Wii Sports. Funny part is I was in high school. Yeah, it felt bad to be forgotten for a little while, but it only made it so much better to be crowned the champion of hide and seek at the age of 16. Edit. Holy cow, I can't believe how much this comment has blown up. When I posted it, it had like 0 upvotes. Thanks for all the awards, smiley face. I remember at my best friend's birthday party we decided to play hide and seek after a crazy water balloon fight. I was 5 feet 1 inch and at most 95 pounds, so hide and seek was kind of my jam. I decided to hide in the hamper they had kept the water balloons in. It was a skinny hamper with holes on the side and the empty trash bag that once held the water balloons was flowing in the wind. I fit myself snugly inside and someone helped tie the trash bag back to the top before the count was over. Everyone was found pretty quickly. I thought for sure I'd be found right away since there were holes on the sides of the hamper that was clearly not empty, but no. It took what felt like ages after everyone was found and me scrunched up in a ball in a skinny hamper feeling the wind threatening to blow me over before they finally found me. The seeker walked past me so many times I tried so hard not to laugh. Someone joked that maybe I went home while everyone was hiding as a joke. The only one who knew where I was the guy who tied the bag to the top and he wasn't saying anything. At one point I considered knocking myself sideways if a big gust of wind blew at me just for the sake of realism, but I was too scared of it hurting so I didn't. Finally, after what felt like an hour, I was found and crowned the hide and seek champion of the party. Think it was around grade 3 or 4, I had a best friend with a big house and 2 parents who later divorced a couple years after. I'll say his dad was a huge garage dad. As in, the guy had his own brand new fishing boat he cleaned every day in there, all his trophies, life relics, everything was in there. The floor of the garage was nicely carpeted, and legit everything in there was spotless. Anytime I went over, his dad spent most of his waking hours in that garage. My friend, his brother, and I somehow got into a water battle with the garden hose/super soakers. I can't really remember how or why it started, but as you can guess, we moved our battle into the garage and left the garden hose running inside. We must have left it running from lunchtime, and his dad didn't come home until 5 or 6. I'll never forget the absolute hysterical screams and wails my friend and his brother made to their mom, who was closing her eyes crying, begging for her to do something while their dad was dragging them into that garage. The screams and yelling from the dad inside the garage continued for the entire hour it took for my parents to pick me up. They were beaten so bad, I don't think my friend could sit down for a solid week. I was meant to stay the night with a kid just a few doors down from my grandparents. He lived with his grandparents and his grandpa was a facilities manager at an upscale apartment complex, might have even been a country club, and offered to take us swimming for the day. His grandfather drops us off at the main pool and says he'll be back in a while. This pool was Olympic-sized and simply had too many people, so we decided to explore and ended up at a smaller pool on the property elsewhere. We were swimming, having a good time and everything was great. That is, until he started a splash fight. We were going back and forth until he started screaming at me. Top of his lungs. Screaming at me. Incoherent screams. He kept coming toward me and I was kind of laughing, kind of scared and had no idea what was going on. He ends up cornering me and tries to push me under the water, still screaming. I wrestle myself free and hit him square in the nose. His nose starts bleeding like Niagara Falls and he started screaming motherfucker repeatedly as loud as his lungs could muster. I got out of the pool and grabbed my things and started back for the front of the complex, the entire time this kid screaming the same word over and over. People are staring. People are trying to calm him down. He's walking after me like the goddamn Terminator. Hands at his sides in fists, this 4'0" kid, covered in blood from his nose just slowly walking after me, ignoring the entire world around him while screaming motherfucker. What feels like forever passes and I'm still trying to get someone to let me use a phone when his grandfather reappears and asks what happened and tells me he has to take kid home and I can't go with them. They let me use the phone, my parents don't answer. I ended up getting a hold of my aunt who was still working and couldn't come get me for another 2 hours. The office wouldn't let me stay inside so I was outside in the parking lot standing around waiting for her to show, still having no idea WTF happened. Aunt shows up and off we go. Get home. Get my ass chewed for being 35 minutes away from home. I had no idea how long the car ride was at the time. A few days later my mom went to talk to kid's grandfather, she comes back to tell me we can't hang out anymore and she tells me he needs medication for keep him calm and they missed his dose that day and it wasn't my fault. Never saw him again. I was meant to stay the night with a kid just a few doors down from my grandparents. He lived with his grandparents and his grandpa was a facilities manager at an upscale apartment complex, might have even been a country club, and offered to take us swimming for the day. His grandfather drops us off at the main pool and says he'll be back in a while. This pool was Olympic-sized and simply had too many people, so we decided to explore and ended up at a smaller pool on the property elsewhere. We were swimming, having a good time and everything was great. That is, until he started a splash fight. We were going back and forth until he started screaming at me. Top of his lungs. Screaming at me. Incoherent screams. He kept coming toward me and I was kind of laughing, kind of scared and had no idea what was going on. He ends up cornering me and tries to push me under the water, still screaming. I wrestle myself free and hit him square in the nose. His nose starts bleeding like Niagara Falls and he started screaming motherfucker repeatedly as loud as his lungs could muster. I got out of the pool and grabbed my things and started back for the front of the complex, the entire time this kid screaming the same word over and over. People are staring. People are trying to calm him down. He's walking after me like the goddamn Terminator. Hands at his sides in fists, this 4'0" kid, covered in blood from his nose just slowly walking after me, ignoring the entire world around him while screaming motherfucker. I make it back to the front of the place and am desperately trying to get someone to let me use a phone to call home. No one will listen. They're enamored with the screaming kid who, by the way, is still lumbering after me. He's a bloody mess, nose running like a fountain, mixing with the water from when he got out of the pool. Looks like a walking murder scene. Out of nowhere, his grandfather appears and snatches him up and disappears with him through a door. What feels like forever passes and I'm still trying to get someone to let me use a phone when his grandfather reappears and asks what happened and tells me he has to take kid home and I can't go with them. They let me use the phone, my parents don't answer. I ended up getting a hold of my aunt who was still working and couldn't come get me for another 2 hours. The office wouldn't let me stay inside, so I was outside in the parking lot standing around waiting for her to show, still having no idea WTF happened. Aunt shows up and off we go. Get home. Get my ass chewed for being 35 minutes away from home. I had no idea how long the car ride was at the time. A few days later my mom went to talk to kid's grandfather. She comes back to tell me we can't hang out anymore and she tells me he needs medication for keep him calm and they missed his dose that day and it wasn't my fault. Never saw him again. A bit of a weird one, this was more sad than anything. I stayed over at my elementary best friend's almost every week. Their grandmother lived with them and everyone treated her like a burden. They told me she was crazy and mean, but she was always very kind to me, and because I was raised to be nice to my elders, I was kind in return. One day, when my friend had to go talk to her mom about something, the grandma asked me into her room. I had never been in there and it was decorated completely differently. I could tell she had moved an entire house worth of stuff into one bedroom. I can't remember the whole conversation, but basically she said I was kind and she really loved talking to me every week, and that her family didn't really let her talk. She gave me a little metal Noah's Ark bracelet but asked me to hide it from the family. I was scared to wear the bracelet because I didn't want my friend to get mad, and every time I looked at it, it made me so sad for Nana. I feel like parents forget during their war that you're literally a child and way too young to cope with the hate they are spreading. I remember when I was 9 I heard my parents fighting and shouting at each other. They did it basically every day, so it was nothing new, while I was in my room, and after a few minutes my mother came and dragged me out of my room in the corridor where my father was with 2 suitcases and said, "Look at him. Look what he is doing. He is going to leave us. How pathetic." And I started crying and told him that I didn't want him to leave. I just remember his eyes full of tears telling me that he was sorry and it's going to be okay, and I still have shivers thinking about this moment. I really hate my mother, or both of them, for dragging me in every fight they had. I really wish parents would use their brain more sometimes. This unlocked a memory I had from elementary school. My mom said I was invited to someone's birthday party and I got super excited as we'd moved recently into a neighborhood with basically no kids. My mom and I spent the morning at the store picking out gifts. I was for sure he would like this pizza-smelling Play-Doh and action figure. My mom drops me off at the party and it was cool. They had this huge jungle gym their dad built. I don't really know anyone, kids I barely knew through Sunday school, and I'm kind of keeping to myself. Well, soon after the birthday kid stops me and asks me why I'm there in front of other people. He then told me that when he told him mom to invite me, it was actually for another kid with the same name in our class. The kid's mom got onto him, but at that point I'd lost interest in being there. During gifts it turned out that it was a dual birthday party for the brother and sister, so when it got to my gift the same shit kid asked what gift I'd brought for the sister, so I said it was the pizza Play-Doh since I knew she liked pizza, made that up, but it was a pizza party. Anywho, My mom eventually came by to pick me up, and when she asked me how it went, I just lied and said it was a lot of fun. Didn't want her to feel bad. Went to my friend's house for the first time. She always wanted to come to my house, not the other way around. But never told me why. So I get there, and after the first hour it all goes downhill. The parents had strict rules about eating at the table. Proceed to insult me about my weight. I have always been skinny but not unhealthy, so, to the point I nearly cried. After that they do 21 questions about my race and family. By the time night comes, I found out they basically have a lockdown rule in their house. We weren't allowed out of her bedroom until morning, and I didn't know that. So I got lectured the next morning. And the end finale was I didn't know I'd be forced to attend their church in the morning before I could go home. So that's how I figured out why she always wanted to stay at my house, not the other way around. Bonus. At one point I overheard her parents talking about me when on the phone with her. They called me a few nasty names and slurs for always inviting her to hang out and go places with my family and putting ideas into her head apparently. I will never forget these people. We were 13, I would guess. Normally I would always stay at my friend's place, but this time we stayed at mine. My parents took us to the bar, which was something people did at the time. Well, my father decided to get blackout drunk, and us two 13-year-olds were stuck in a bar from 8 p.m. until 1 a.m. It was getting pretty uncomfortable between the parents and even some of the other people in the bar, cause well, kinda shitty to have a couple of 13-year-olds in a bar on a Friday night at 1 a.m. So when my father got up to use the bathroom, my mom grabbed us and we ran out to the van. He came out screaming through a beer and was banging on the van, screaming all sorts of obscenities. Well, we get home, get some dinner finally, and my mom goes to bed. My friend and I decide to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit in the living room, which I never got to use, but hey, Dad is gone. Well, an hour later he shows up. And he just sits on the couch and smokes pot until falling asleep an hour later. So we sneak off to my room, and my friend's parents picked us up to stay at his place. And that was the last time I ever had a friend over. Oh boy, I got one. Really fucked up, and my ex-friend ruined our friendship of like 4 to 5 years, started hanging when we were like 5, this happened when I was either 9 or 10, in one single night. For absolutely no fucking reason other than him being a creep/jackass. So for the most part, the sleepover was typical: movie, video games, popcorn. Pretty standard stuff. Then it comes time to go to bed. I go into the bathroom and change into my pajama pants, then walk back in, and he's already in his bed and smirking. Didn't really think much of it, so I crawled into my sleeping bag, well, his sleeping bag, but he let me use it, and asked if he wanted to play some video games more. This is where shit gets weird. He throws open the blanket and he's naked. Kid basically just flashed me. The fuck? Understandably stunned, I say something along the lines of, "The hell is wrong with you, put some clothes on." And he goes, "Nope, my house, my rules." So I'm really uncomfortable now, really don't want to sleep. But he covers himself back up with his blankets and says he'll put his clothes back on, which he does. So really pissed at him, but at this time he was my best friend, and longest friend I've had in my life. So I try to shrug it off, and we play some more video games for a little bit, then turn off the lights and go to sleep. Then it gets worse. Not too long after the lights go out, I hear him rustling around, then getting out of his bed. He says I'm naked again, laughs, then tries to lay on me. Fuck that. I shove him off, and he keeps trying to lay on me. Basically a brief back and forth goes on, and at this point I'm pretty much yelling at him to leave me alone and go to sleep. I hear him stand up. Okay, good, he's going to leave me alone now, right? I start to feel something splattering against my sleeping bag where my feet were. Didn't take long for me to figure it out. Dude was pissing on me. Told him I was going home as I'm trying to get out of the sleeping bag, but before I can get all of the way out he body slams me. I was a pretty strong kid so it didn't hurt that bad, I was more stunned. But boy, after all of that I just didn't care anymore, I was seeing red. He stood up to body slam me again, just as I got my legs out from the sleeping bag. As he goes to jump on me I kick him in the stomach as hard as I can, and he goes down gasping/crying. I woke up his mom, it was like 11:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. at this point, and told her what happened. She goes into the room to find her naked son on the floor crying, basically yells at me to leave, didn't have to tell me twice. So I call my mom and wait for her on their front porch as my friend's mom is basically opening up a can of hoop ass once she sees the pee on the sleeping bag/ground. I probably should have left right away, but as I said before, he was my longest, best friend I had back at the time. We had sleepovers before and he had never done anything like that. I think I was mostly just stunned of what he was doing, which is why it took me so long to leave. Never talked to him since. So yeah, that's my story. Thanks for reading.